I'm going to take a quick look at this Atlantic Research Corporation Interview 40A data analyzer. What this does is it basically interfaces with a serial connection, and you can send and receive messages. You can run test cycles where it will send a certain number of sequences, count the replies, that sort of stuff. This thing actually does have a video out on it, so I'm going to use my ADVC 100 to record it to my computer. CRT that's in this thing is really dim right now. I don't remember it being that dim, so I think it may just be the brightness pot is wonky on it. This is a pretty old model. I don't remember. I think it's like mid-70s. And yeah, so it's not working too well, and I've got like half the screws out, so I'm surprised it even turns on. Okay, let's power it up. Makes this horrifying beep when it turns on. Now, for some reason, the video signal's slightly corrupted. I'm not sure. I don't remember doing that before. So it says press program to continue. Software version 3. It's got some options installed apparently. And get to the menu. And from here, you can do stuff like set up the protocol, which allows you to pick how many bits, the parity, that sort of thing, and where your clock source is, etc. And we've got things like trigger setups where you can tell it to do something when it receives something, like say one line goes high or one line goes low. You can set it up to do that. And we've got the interactive test, which, as it shows, you can type in something and you can tell it to wait for that, and when it sees that, you want it to send, 7 or something like that. So it will wait for this set of characters in the data stream and then reply with that every time. And you can set up a big list of those. There are built-in tests stored in ROMs, and if I remember how to do this, it's 0, 1. Let's see if this loads it up. Name whatever. Run. Yeah, that looks like it's the test. So it would just sit here and wait for replies and whatnot, whatever part of the test you've set up. There's a print button that just yells at you. There's a freeze button, which just lights up. I guess it locks it out. Lets you switch to hex input. And my favorite button, which is the don't care button. And it just yells at you whenever you do it. This is a membrane keypad. It's actually quite terrible, but hey, what are you gonna do? Library utilities. Oh, this lets. I think it must not be ROM that this is stored in, seeing as there's a save and load function. It may be EEPROM, which it's able to rewrite, or maybe it copies it to memory or something. I'm not sure. Code translate chart. E. Interesting. Well, I guess that's all there is. Yeah, not much you can do. I've hooked this up to a serial port before, and it didn't really do much. I wasn't able to really get it to do anything. It's possible it's broken. So, let's flip this thing around. The front does have power inputs. No, it's power outputs and a UA input, which I'm not really sure what that is. Has a +3 and -3 volt light. Oh no, greater than +3? Oh, I guess it's just a warning. Oh, and it's got this switch for monitor, DT and DC, and it flips over the LEDs. And it's got these, I think these are just designed to be jumper links, and some dip switches to bypass stuff. Not too interesting. And this is the another set of interfaces to the serial connection. Oh, this might be. Oh, I know what this is. This is the bottom row of this, and this is the top row. I think that's how this works. And it's just got a DB25 as the serial connector. There's also a DB25 port right here underneath the case, and it just says this is for factory testing only. Around back, there's a little metal label saying Atlantic Research Corp, the serial number, model, and that it was the company's in Springfield, Virginia. On the back, we've got a rather loud fan, a big clunking power switch, the IEC mains input with a little slide fuse holder, the video out, which is a BNC connector, so I was using this BNC to RCA adapter to record that and just run it through the composite input. There's a brightness dial, which doesn't do anything, an auxiliary output, and a connection for a printer, or I guess a remote system as well, and made in the USA. On the top there's a little twist pop screw, and it opens up to show some expansion card slots. There's more in there, we'll get to those in a second, but it's got these little guides all on the top too, in foam. It's kind of hard to see. With the top off, you can see that it's one giant motherboard underneath. This is a Z80 based system. There's a daughter board here that has all the expansion slots. There's one card installed, power supply along the back, and a CRT module, and I think this whole thing just like disconnects and pulls out. And yeah, just a front panel board with a very funny arrangement for the selection dial. The dial rotates, but it changes that rotation into a linear movement through this sheathed connector, and then turns it into a slide switch. I guess they had to do that because you're switching presumably all 25 lines of the serial port, and they didn't want to have one of those gigantic rotary switches that are really tough to switch. So this allows it to do just a simple slide switch that's actually very easy to turn, and yet still switch all of these connections simultaneously. Well, I ripped the whole thing apart to throw out all the metal and clear up some space while I do the rest of the video. This power supply, it looks like it's pretty standard power supply. It's got decent caps, they're all Chemicon, nice copper heat sinks on a lot of the parts. Decently built, can't complain about this thing. It's obviously old, but you know, it works. There's an interesting resistor right here. Well, I mean, it doesn't look like a resistor, it looks like a modern like spark gap, but it's actually listed as a resistor on the board, so I assume it's just some kind of old style package. Here's the Sprite fan, made in the USA. This thing's ridiculously heavy. It's made out of metal almost entirely. Comes with a nice 50 watt 1K ohm Dale resistor on it. This is the membrane keyboard. You can see it's got a more or less standard arrangement of keys. It just has a few extra crazy ones at the end. I do love that don't care button. And yeah, the LEDs are on another board behind it. This thing interfaces to the motherboard by this cable plugging into the motherboard, and then the keyboard cable plugging into here, and then this cable goes along to that hidden connector. So obviously the test system that they have for this machine is actually just inputting keyboard commands. It's not actually hooking up to test points or anything. This is the interface board with the fancy slider switch and stuff. It's got a few chips, most of them are resistor packs. And on the back there's a connection for this ribbon cable that runs down to the motherboard. There's a power connector, and here's the actual mechanism and its convoluted glory. It is impressive though. This is the expansion card board. It's got 3 slots on it, all look the same. They seem to be more or less paralleled up. There's a bunch of 7.4 series logic on it. It does have some nice examples of tropical fish capacitors, kind of like modern resistors where they have a color code. That's how you would tell these capacitors apart. And there's one card that was included in the one I have, and it just has some ROM chips on it, jumpers as well, and dip switches, and of course you got some 7.4 series logic on it, because it wouldn't be 80s technology without 7.4 series logic. Well, then again, it wouldn't be modern technology without 7.4 series logic either. Seems everything's got a little bit of it in it. And lastly, we have the motherboard. Got some DRAM over here. I guess it could be SRAM. I think it's DRAM. A couple test points here. It's funny because it actually says power test plug, and they clearly didn't populate it, so now it's just test pads. They may have mixed metals on these screws holding the DB connectors on the back, because they're all corroding like crazy, but none of the other metal in the thing is. So if it's two different metals, they tend to form a battery and corrode, which is generally not a good thing. Big bank of EEPROM. These are not electrically erasable. They need to be UV erased by shining a UV light into them. That's why the chips are exposed. Normally you would cover these up just because they can slowly start to erase from light, but in this case it was probably okay, because that case was pretty well sealed. And I found out it's actually got dual processors. It's got two Z80s, one here and one here. It's also got this SMC chip named after a CRT, so I'm assuming it's a video controller of some kind, and it looks like they've got some memory for it. Or actually, these have writing on it. These might be like GALs or something. And yeah, not much on the board. It's got this big separator plate. I don't know if this is actually a ground connection or if it's you know, specifically there for a shield, because it could just be a big jumper to get power around the board. And yeah, not much else. It's got these old school jumpers on it mixed with newer ones. These are actually just like bent metal. They kind of look like A-wings from Star Wars. Other than that, there's a reset and test switch on the board, along with all the connectors for the power supply and whatnot, and the keyboards and stuff like that. Huge buzzer. Modern ones are quite small. One of the two CPUs on it. 12th week of 1983. Here you can see the older style jumpers. Interesting design. They also have newer ones on this thing, like over here, so I don't know why there's a mix of them. And you can also see how the all the traces are hand laid out, curved around the screw holes and stuff like that. Very nice board. So all in all, it's a moderately interesting device. I mean, I didn't pay very much for it. I've had it for months and maybe even a year now. It doesn't do very much. I just thought it was kind of unique.